What's up, everybody? Joe White here. This is your AEW Full Gear reactions video, and we're going to run down the pay-per-view a little bit here. And we're going to give you my thoughts on this. Let's start with the buy-in. B. Priestley versus Britt Baker. Had Taz and Golden Boy along with Excalibur. Excalibur still has not explained why he wears that fucking mask. The stage for the pay-per-view, they had a cool stage. It had gears and a ramp that went all the way to the ring, and I like this. I was hoping for this. I'm sitting there going, please don't have that same boring fucking set with the chandelier in the middle and the two tunnels, and they didn't. Now, Wednesday, we'll probably see the same old chandelier and two tunnels, but if you're going to do that and then have a special set for the pay-per-view, I'm cool with that, because back during the Attitude Era, they would do special sets for the pay-per-view. Remember, one year at King of the Ring, they had the electric chair, and for Backlash, they always had the sickles swinging back and forth, and they always had special sets for these pay-per-views. And then they just stopped. So and it's a cost issue, I know, but it gives us something different to look at, and it was actually a very beautiful setup. Anyway, basically, B. Priestley versus them. Darby Allin was shown watching at ringside for some strange reason, and this was a pretty okay match. It told a story here. Bree hits a destroyer here during the match on B, but B. Priestley kicked out. Britt hits a super kick, then the lockjaw to win. It was an okay match. Told a decent story. I hope we see these two go in different directions after this, and it looks like we will, because Awesome Kong comes out afterwards and attacks B. Priestley, gives her the implant buster, and then Brandy has a knife, or Kong hands Brandy the knife, hits the implant buster, grabs the knife back, and clearly cuts off a piece of fake hair. And I still don't get this shit with Brandy Rhodes and Kong and the voodoo and it's just so. Sorry, we've seen Kong before. We've definitely seen Brandy before, playing complete 180s of this. Kong, maybe, okay, I get the Kong aspect of it, but the Brandy Rhodes bit just doesn't fit in with me. If she's going to be a manager for Kong, then she needs to be Brandy Rhodes. It just doesn't suit her. It doesn't fit her. I don't like it. I don't like the character. No, sorry. Just don't like it. Let's move on here. Then we had the full show. Good opening video. Good production here. And we opened up with the Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. And this is what happens, I think, that when you... They said that Shivani was on special assignment with the Georgia Bulldogs, so we had a two-man booth, which to me was refreshing to see. The problem is that you have two play-by-play guys. They needed that analyst in there, I thought. But the Young Bucks versus the Proud and the Powerful, this is what happens when you give the crowd the AEW indie style flippity floppity flu right out of the gate. I liked the match. I thought the match was really well done. I thought the match was good, but it just burnt the crowd out. The match ends when they went for the Meltzer driver. Nick's leg gave out because Nick had been selling the leg. Nick tagged back in and basically spit his gum in Santana's face. Santana picks up the gum, started chewing it. The crowd's chanting, "You sick fuck." Santana spits the gum back in Nick Jackson's face. Then the Proud and the Powerful hits a street sweeper to win the match. Sammy Guevara came out after the attack, continued on the Bucks, and then the Rock and Roll Express get involved, and Ricky Morton hits a very sloppy-looking destroyer and then did a dive, and the crowd's chanting, "You still got it." And I'm like, guys, these guys fight on the indie scene just about every fucking week. Have you not seen them? Like, I mean, if there's a card if there's a wrestling show in North Carolina, I guarantee you somewhere, the Rock and Roll Express work here almost every weekend is what I'm getting at. I didn't like the Rock and Roll Express involvement. I think the old guys hitting a destroyer on the younger guys just makes the younger guys look like shit. I do think that going forward, I don't know where these two teams go going forward. I don't want to see them rematched again because, quite frankly, this was all I needed to see of these four. And it was a good match. The problem is, it just tired the crowd out way too early because the crowd was absolutely dead from here on out. The crowd paid to see 3 matches on this fucking show, and they got those 3. They got one of those 3 matches right out of the gate. So the rest of the show, they were just like fucking sitting on their hands, man. I've never seen a Baltimore crowd like that before. But then it hit me is that, this is what happens when AEW fans go to a pay-per-view. It's pretty much an indie show for the first half of the card, and they just sit there on their hands. The next match was Adam Page versus Pac, and it was a very good match, I thought. The crowd starts chanting cowboy shit and blah, 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 and I thought that this match had a lot of psychology in it. I thought it told a good story. The crowd was just dead for most of it. The brainbuster hit by Pac on Adam Page on that chair on the outside was just freaking crazy. The hanging brutalizer was awesome. Pac misses the black arrow. Pac attempts a low blow, but Page blocks it, hits the dead eye, scores the victory. I like how they kept teasing the buckshot lariat, but Page never really got it out. And yeah, this match was good. A lot of psychology here. The crowd just does, this AEW crowd just does not want to see psychology. And I blame the Young Bucks for that primarily because the Young Bucks matches have no real psychology half the time. There are a few exceptions. And it's just moves for the sake of doing fucking moves. It's a spot fest, or what we now call stunt fest wrestling. Because, I'm sorry, I never thought I would hear the day when I heard, let alone Dave Meltzer, but anybody say that, they lined up and did stunts. When did this become, Ric Flair all those years ago called Mick Foley a glorified stuntman, and now we outright have the critics saying, yeah, they just did a couple stunts. So now we've gone from spot fest wrestling to stunt fest wrestling, and the stunt fest wrestling has conditioned modern wrestling fans, millennial wrestling fans, to not appreciate psychology and storytelling. Except for in the later matches when they, Cody's the exception. Cody was the exception. And the reason being is because Cody does not do stunt fest wrestling. When you do the stunt fest shit, it just, it cycles these fans and tricks these fans into thinking that psychology just doesn't matter to me. And that's what I see when I look at these crowds. If you're not doing a million fucking moves and a million stunts, they don't care. And unless it's Cody Rhodes. That's what these AEW fans are conditioned to. Joey Janela versus Shawn Spears. I like the Shawn Spears entrance. Tully Blanchard doing the pile driver, the spike pile driver on the floor, and then Spears going in, hits the DVD in the ring, wins the match. Of course, you got Jelly Janela in there, and here we go again. They've taken Janela and turned him into that, pair by putting him with Darby Allin, by putting him with Moxley, by putting him in lights out matches with Omega. It conditioned the fans to this stunt fest shit so that when you try to actually throw a little psychology in there, like Janela did, and when you try to throw a little bit of selling in there, people just don't care. They don't want to see psychology. They don't want to see selling. They don't want to see this storytelling like they tried to do here. They just want to see moves for the sake of doing moves. And I'm not saying every AEW fan is like that, but that's what when you kick things off, the match order on this pay-per-view was all wrong. It should have started off with a women's match or something, and the Young Bucks should have came in later, because it just so tired the crowd out and conditioned the crowd to think and react a certain way. But Joey Janela versus Shawn Spears, I actually, I'm a Shawn Spears fan. So, except for when he was in WWE doing the 10-10-10, but now he's gotten away from that, and I like it. Because Shawn Spears actually shows a little bit more personality, and it doesn't hurt having Blanchard in there with him. We had the 3-way next for the AEW Tag Team titles, SoCal Uncensored, which is Frankie Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, versus the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, versus Private Party, which is Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. This is exactly like, The crowd was very much into the Lucha Brothers. The Lucha Brothers was the Lucha Brothers chewed up the scenery in this match. They really did. And I didn't like it because it's like, okay, they're in there doing the Seattle, and it's like the other guys didn't really have a chance to get over because of that. When you're trying to get over, when you're trying to sit there and get yourself over, and automatically you have these two idiots upstaging you on purpose. Pentagon and Phoenix, they're amazing in the rings. Again, this is Stunt Fest Wrestling. It's exactly what I said on the prediction podcast that it would be. And, the Lucha Brothers get the heat in after the match. And then Christopher Daniels comes in. Another Pentagon appeared in the ring. He hits the Angel's Wings. And, of course, as soon as he hits the Angel's Wings, we know it's Christopher Daniels. I like how they pinned Private Party. The Lucha Brothers weren't pinned here, so that keeps them strong. Private Party just needs a couple more, about another year under their belt before they get those tag titles. Now watch it, I say that, and they'll get them next week. But it was just a lot of stunts. Stunt Fest Wrestling at its best. Spot Fest Wrestling at its best. It was good to look at. I mean, don't get me wrong. The stunts, as they're now called in wrestling, are cool to look at. And they're very impressive for people to pull off without killing themselves. It's just that it's not the type of wrestling that I enjoy over and over and over again. And when about 80% of your roster is this bullshit, there's a reason why I pick and choose what I watch every Wednesday when I flip back and forth, and 9 times out of 10, NXT gets my money. So, because they're into more storytelling. Sure, it's scripted, but fuck. I mean, it's better than watching 50 super kicks and 50 450s and shooting stars. It's, to me, I like a little logic thrown in there. I like a little storytelling in there. But next we had the women's title, and oh my God, the crowd was ever dead for this one. Emi Sakurai. When they did that pre-video, and she's not dressed up in the band leader uniform and the mustache and the Freddie Mercury bullshit. I love Freddie Mercury, don't get me wrong, but come on, you got to get away from this. When Emi Sakurai is not in that gimmick, when she's straight up just talking in street clothes to the camera like she was in this video, I was like, damn, she's kind of attractive, and she comes off well, and she looks good, and then you see her in that damn band uniform, and it's just like, My stepdaughter came in during this match, looked at Rio, and goes, she looks like a pageant performer, not a wrestler. So that tells you right there what the casual audience looks at Rio and sees. And of course, this is student versus teacher, and somebody from, I think it was Post Wrestling, said that Emmy had been, touting this on Twitter and telling the story on Twitter. Well, guess what, dude? Nobody goes on fucking Twitter to look for fucking wrestling storylines. Sorry, but it doesn't. Not when you got half the fucking wrestlers out there tweeting about what marks and idiots we are because we're not in the business, so we don't understand. So, this match, I honestly fell asleep during this match. It bored the hell out of me. Sakurai started to do the Freddie Mercury, "Ayo," and the crowd started to, if you hear it, the crowd kind of responds to her. And then she goes into the surfboard, the rolling surfboards, and she needs to get away from this Freddie Mercury bullshit. It's dragging her down. I think she has the potential to be so much more. If you look on that pre-match video, you see more there than I have anywhere else. And she wasn't wearing that stupid gimmick and doing, stupid ring gear and doing the stupid gimmick. Rio, in my opinion, they need to get, okay. I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this. I like women's wrestling. I like Japanese women's wrestling. I don't want to see it anymore in AEW. This whole thing of Kenny Omega has been behind this. Kenny Omega has pretty much been on record as running the women's division. This Joshi shit is not getting over with the American fans as much as people want it to. This thought of everybody who watches AEW watches New Japan too is bullshit. You could tell by the way the crowd reacts to these guys. Nobody cares about being in Japan. It's like I watched that Road to or preview special, and all they talk about is Kenny Omega sitting there talking about, I wrestled in Budokan and I wrestled in Sumo Hall, and the American fans are sitting there going, where? Huh? What have you done in America, dude? What have you done on this side of the pond? The quote-unquote casual fan that Cody Rhodes says that he doesn't want, the people who are actually, a good chunk of the audience that's watching Dynamite every week, does not give a shit about what goes on in Japan. I hate to break it to you guys. I hate to break it to you. Your hardcores do. Your hardcores follow it. But guess what? Your hardcore's not even following it. Now that you're gone from it. They don't give a fuck about you showing up in DDT. Sorry. They just don't. So this title match, I don't care. You got somebody in Britt Baker be your first champion and should be out there tearing it up with people like B. Priestley, like an Alley, but no, we get this bullshit that nobody cares about. Jericho versus Cody, I love this. I love this so much. The red, as soon as they showed the judges at the ringside, I'm like, okay, they already work for the fucking company, except Muta. The other two are already agents with the company, so I knew full well that this was not going to the judges. Because Arn Anderson and Malenko, and especially Muta, they're all sitting there going, okay, we're getting paid to be here. We don't give a fuck. Cody comes out with MJF, hugs his mom at ringside, and as soon as MJF came out, I'm like, okay, they're turning him tonight. It's happening tonight. Jericho gets a lot of pyro, has Jake Hager with him. The crowd does a fuck your birthday chant at Chris Jericho. Cody does a dive over the top, smashes his face into the ramp, busts himself open extremely hard way. The doctors are checking on Cody. Jericho's in the ring sitting on a chair waiting. Hager ends up interfering, gets tossed out. Cody's mom slaps Jericho. Cody gives her a hug, and then she reaches down and smacks him again. She full-on hit Jericho twice. I loved it. I love the fact that they got Cody's involved. Cody does a figure four. Hager interfered again. Again, like I said, gets tossed out. He threw MJF into the barricade before leaving. Jericho uses the title on Cody when the referee's not looking and then laid down Eddie Guerrero style. Cody ends up kicking out of that pin. Cody hits the crossroads out of nowhere. Jericho kicks out. The crowd starts chanting, this is awesome. This is where the crowd came alive again because, like I said, the crowd came to see 3 matches. And that's what happens when you don't have enough build for things like Janela and Spears. And Pac and Hangman. Those 2 matches did not have enough build, so therefore the crowd just doesn't give a shit. Cody does Dusty's bionic elbow for the near fall. Cody hits the code breaker by countering the disaster kick. We get the walls of Jericho. Cody gets to the ropes. Jericho gets in the referee. She shoved him. He shoved the ref. She shoved him and led to Cody getting an inside cradle for a near fall. Jericho ends up getting the walls of Jericho again, and MJF. We all of a sudden, nobody has had a towel in their hands throughout the entire match, but we all of a sudden see MJF with this big, white, fluffy Bed Bath & Beyond towel in his hand, and he throws it in the ring. I thought it would have been better off for him to throw the scarf into the ring. Hey, he threw the scarf in. The scarf is his towel. And they did the throw. That's how they got out of this. They didn't do, they're true to their word. Cody's not challenging for this title again. Because MJF throws in the towel. And I love this because MJF, who I adore MJF. MJF is freaking amazing. He's on his knees. He's got tears in his eyes. And he had tears in his eyes for like the last 5 minutes of this match. And he's got tears in his eyes. And I'm sorry, I had to. He was going to hurt you. And Cody is legitimately pissed, but finally, picks him up, goes, it's okay, it's okay. He shakes his hand, hugs him, and then MJF hits him with a low blow. And then MJF walks out. As he's walking, the crowd's giving him a ton of shit, calling him an asshole. And then they had a plant in the crowd throw a drink at him, throw his cup at him. The crowd went crazy for this. The quote-unquote fan then gets tossed out. This was match of the... Well, I don't know. This is tied for me at match of the night. Because what we got next was pretty damn cool. Moxley versus Omega. If we get more hardcore Kenny out of this, I'm for it. Because God knows he ain't been, here's the man who was supposed to be the face of the company. He was the star of the company. Kenny Omega, he'll be a star. Nope. Why? Because the casual fan don't know who he is. They don't give a shit. So they did, Moxley dropping F-bombs so as he grabs weapons under the ring. He gets the barbed wire bat. He hits Kenny Omega. Omega starts bleeding. They set a table up. Kenny gets the broom wrapped in barbed wire. Moxley goes for a suicide dive to try to put Omega through that he just propped up on the barricade, but no, Omega clocks him in the back of the head with the barbed wire broom, which caused Moxley to bleed profusely. They get broken glass, and I love how the announcers go, that's the pieces of the broken table that Moxley put Omega through. That was brilliant. Brilliant. And you could tell JR just did not want to call this match. When he did call and when he was into it, it was brilliant, but for about 80% of this match, you could tell Jim Ross was like, why the fuck am I here doing this? They end up bringing a board in with the mouse traps, which this is my problem with Excalibur. There's got to be 50 or 60 mouse traps. Dude, there was like 20. Maybe 15, 20 at the most on that board. Come on. And they were those crappy little mouse traps that don't hurt anyway. They get steel chain, a big gold chain in the ring, and they use that as plunder. Bunch of V triggers here. They get up on the ring and get up on the ramp eventually, and Omega tells the Bucks to bring something in, and they bring in the big, huge barbed wire spider web. Moxley, they end up doing the vertical suplex into it. Takes them about 5 minutes to get these guys out of this thing. Omega gives Moxley a V trigger through the full gear stage. And they're still continuing on. Back in the ring, paradigm shift on the glass by Moxley. Omega kicks out, and then he takes a knife and starts cutting the laces that are holding the canvas down to the ring frame. And then he peels the canvas apart. He peels the padding off into where it's just the pine boards. And I love how JR goes, y'all want to see what the guts of a wrestling ring looks like? Here it is. Piece of canvas. You got about a 2-inch piece of padding, and then bam, plywood. And then Omega goes out. They wrestle around on the pine the pine wood here. Omega hits a paradigm shift on Moxley. Goes up for a Phoenix Splash, which everybody's oohing and awing. That's what's his face's move. That's his boyfriend's move. Oh my God. He's not coming in. He signed a lifetime deal with Japan, guys. A quote-unquote lifetime deal. He's not coming into AEW. And the way it looks, Omega's not going to Japan. Stop. That's a Bushi's move. Anyway. Don't get mad at me for saying, oh, it's his boyfriend's move. They called themselves the Golden Lovers, for crying out loud. Give me a break. That was the gimmick. But Omega doing the Phoenix Splash and cracking himself on the on the pine boards for the ring was good. Paradigm shift on the wood to win. Excuse me. This match went nearly 50 minutes. And I liked it. I'll tell you guys all the time, I like serious Omega. I like hardcore Omega. It's the video game shit and the jazz hands, and when he wants to be an artist, I'm an artist. I'm Kenny Olivier, as Jim Cornette likes to call him. That's when I tune out, and that's when I'm like, this is stupid. But I like this match. To me, this was my favorite match of the night. But overall, the crowd just didn't give a shit. And it was just, it's the way they did the lead up to this that made, that that mid card, nobody gave a shit in that arena about. Why? Because they hadn't really hyped it up all that much. They hadn't really sold you on it. This match was sold on 3 matches. Kenny and Moxley, Cody and Jericho, and that tag team title match with the Bucks. Once again, Cody, Bucks, and Kenny. That's what they're selling you this promotion on. The rest of it, nobody gives a shit about, as it was, in that arena, especially that women's match. That women's title match, that was the bathroom match. You could literally see droves of people going up and down the steps, going to the bathroom. I am looking forward to the MJF explanation, and I hope it's I got you out of my way, I sniveled my way out of it to where I never have to face you for that title. Once I win that title, I never have to worry about you as an opponent. I got you out of the way by doing that. So, and I like it. I wish they, once one fan threw his drink at him, I was expecting more trash to be thrown. The quote-unquote fan. But I like it. I like me some MJF. I love heel MJF so much. And I hope to God that they continue this, and I hope we get a kick-ass Cody versus MJF match out of this. Really, I do. And if you're only going to do pay-per-views quarterly, you need to have one big TV show, like a supercard TV show, in between to kind of bridge the gap. Why not put Cody versus MJF on that? Me, personally, I wouldn't have had him turn tonight. I would have saved the turn. That turn right there is a pay-per-view match. It's not a one-off deal. I mean, it's just not. It should have happened. Like, that's your WrestleMania match, Cody versus MJF. Whether it's for the title or not, that's your WrestleMania match right there with those two. So it probably should have been saved for like All Out or Double or Nothing or All In, whatever they're calling their big pay-per-view when they go back to Chicago. So there it is, Full Gear. Overall, like I said, I literally fell asleep during the women's match and woke up just in time to see Jericho walking out. So I had to re-watch the women's match this morning. But man, that crowd was dead. They were to me, they were only one step up from that Nassau crowd that was this past Friday or Monday, whatever, when WWE was there in New York. This was maybe a small step above that. The large portion of this crowd, either they didn't mic them good or they just didn't care, because I saw a lot of people sitting on their hands. I really did. And you condition them to the stunt fest wrestling. They don't care about the only people they care about telling a story and having any psychology is Cody and Jericho. That's it. Everybody else on the card, they don't want to see psychology and storytelling. They want to see stunts. They come to see a stunt show. You might as well tell them to go see Cirque du Soleil. It's just my opinion of it. I'm probably going to have a million people telling me I'm wrong. But I think that when you condition fans to, like a certain thing, and you've built up this fan base telling them this is what we are, we're not professional wrestling, and then when you give them professional wrestling, they shit on it. So, again, my problem with wrestling today isn't the style of wrestling as much as it is the fans liking that style of wrestling. Like Meltzer says all the time, the fans like it, so it's got to be right. No, that's not the case. I blame the fans for putting up with the bullshit and liking this shit. Anyway, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get off here. That has been my Full Gear review and thoughts. I have an interview coming up Monday night with somebody that I think will surprise you. We're going to talk a little NASCAR with this person on Monday. Still trying to get clearance from Money Magazine for that PR firm. If you've been following me on Twitter at Joe Pillar to Post, you know the story there. But that's it for me. We'll talk to you next week here on the YouTube channel. Star Wars comes out next week for the PS4, the video game. The new Star Wars game looks amazing, by the way. Looking so forward to picking that up this week. I'm so glad I canceled that Death Stranding pre-order. Ooh. I would have been throwing my controller at it this week. But anyway, folks, that's it from me. We'll see you down the road.